Hey guys, welcome back. This is a story about what if Deku trained more part 3. Before we get into the story, most of you guys who watch aren't sundry yet, so what are you waiting for? Hit the subscribe button to help me get to 50 subscribers. Now enjoy the video. Izuku yelped as his face got burned and started to tear up, and he tried getting up before getting kicked to the ground by Kaken, who pelted him with multiple explosions. Bardock growled before grabbing the wrist of Kaken as he was about to unleash another one on Izuku, even though he was slightly bleeding and had a few first-degree burns. Kaken looked at Bardock angrily. Who the hell are? Bardock punched the dean in the stomach, making Bakugo cough up blood and made him pass out unconscious. Bardock threw him at the building and he hit it hard and fell to the ground, definitely unconscious. Izuku whimpered before realizing it was Bardock who saved him. Bardock-sen, what the hell, kid? Bardock shouted at Izuku. You weren't going to fight back against this asshole, and you call yourself my apprentice? No, my student. Izuku looked down. Bardock glared at Izuku. Come on, you have a voice, don't you? Use it, damn it. Izuku looked at Bardock, and Bardock saw his black eye. He wouldn't stop R regardless. He would keep hurting me, and get more violent, and you didn't tell us. I've been stalking and watching over you all day because yesterday I noticed you had burns. Do you know how infuriated and worried I was? I thought you had an abusive parent, or you were being experimented on. Bardock yelled at the once quirkless dean. I'm glad now that I stopped it, but still, what the hell? Izuku looked down before getting up and still looking down. What, are you gonna? Bardock was cut off as Izuku punched him in the face without his quirk. I would have been fine. I was used to it. It's happened for 11 years now, sensei. 11 years, Izuku shouted at Bardock. Kaken knows when he needs to stop, because if he continued after that explosion you stopped, he could have been with assaulting another person. I would have been fine. Izuku couldn't continue as he then hugged Bardock and cried into his shoulder. Bardock didn't know why, but he suddenly felt all tingly inside as Izuku hugged him, and something that felt like a sense for longing disappeared. Thank you, sensei, Izuku said. Bardock, hesitantly but surely, hugged Izuku back before patting the back of Izuku's head. No problem, kid. Bardock realized what he was missing, his life that he was longing for. He was longing for a family. Chapter 4 Hero Academia. Izuku had felt many moments of awe and respect for someone. Most being All Might's many accomplishments, heroic acts, and also status as symbol of peace. That much is true. There are other instances too, like when Bakugo got his quirk. He was impressed, then depressed because of the years of hell he had to endure. So much rage was built up before he met All Might and cried tears of joy for the first time. Then he met 21, 16, and Bardock. He had his doubts about being trained by two androids, but more or less concerned about if he'll find someone to crush on besides 21, who is an android, and he wasn't sure how dating an android would work, but when the training started to pay off, he started doubting less. Then he got to train under Bardock. Bardock was a way harsher teacher, more practical if anything. Bardock was a warrior, through and through. He didn't pity Izuku or even show him mercy. He kept trying to get Izuku to push himself harder and harder. While it paid off, Izuku always felt sore the next day. Afternoons were easier, but he'd still be sore the next day. That was until Izuku saw the caring side of the warrior, that cared for him so much he would stalk him to ensure his safety. It was nice, and also creepy, but still nice. Izuku had a new level of respect for the warrior. And he was not that a man as seemingly cold as Bardock was able to care to that level. Currently, he was walking with Bardock to the beach they trained at. They were both silent, both not finding the right words to say, or, at least that was what Izuku was doing. Bardock was thinking about how to make Izuku stronger. Especially so Izuku will learn how to defend himself and actually fight back. And actually beat the crap out of that kid who tried to beat him up. They made it to the beach, and saw 21 and 16 there waiting for them. 21, upon seeing them, ran up to Izuku and looked at his arms and looked at the burns. Izuku, are you okay? Are you sure these are nothing? Do we need to get you a doctor? Izuku blushed at her soft touch, but also winced with each as the burns hurt. Why yes, Bardock. Looked at 16. Toss me a senzu bean. 16 raised an eyebrow but tossed him a green bean after pulling one from a pouch. Bardock then force-fed Izuku the bean, and Izuku almost coughed. Bardock-sensei. What was then he suddenly felt energized and felt all the burns and injuries and leave. Even his sore bones stopped aching. What? Am I healed? He looked at his arms in disbelief. Bardock crossed his arms. That was a senzu bean. It can heal any injury. Izuku looked at Bardock surprised. Any? Yeah, Bardock confirmed. Izuku was surprised by this information. If it could heal any injury, it would be something hospital could use to help heroes get back on the field, and could possibly technically revive people if the right conditions were applied. Izuku then thought of something. How long ago can the senzu beans heal? Like can they heal injuries from like 6 years ago? Izuku asked. Yeah, they can. It's amazing on how much data I managed to get from these, 21 said proudly. Even someone's entire respiratory system that's been damaged and restore a person's destroyed stomach, Izuku asked. If he was right, he could save All Might from retirement. 21 nodded. Though if they had surgery, they might need to have the filler stuff removed, and they need to digest it, and then he couldn't save All Might. Oh, Izuku said, his determination deflated and he somewhat moped. There goes his plan. You made it sound like you know someone who has those same conditions, don't you kid? Bardock questioned. Yeah, he's important too. Me, Izuku said, keeping details to a minimum. Bardock sighed. Well, considering they might be alive and with those conditions, we could give them a blended senzu bean so they could still heal and technically digest it, and then he could save All Might with a clever plan. Really? Izuku asked. Yep. It shouldn't be too hard. We just need to see him and give him a blended senzu bean. After ripping out his stomach, 21 confirmed, though sounding really grossed out by the last bit she said. I'll try to call him and get him to meet me here tomorrow at maybe 6 p.m., Izuku said, since he hadn't been able to get a hold of All Might since the entrance exam. Good plan. It should work, 16 said. We'll be here to rip out his stomach then. How blunt and gory that sound. Oh okay, Izuku said. He then started to jog back home due to how late it was. It was roughly around 6, but his mother worried too much for her own good. It's amazing how she can cry every day. When he got home, he noticed a letter at the door and picked it up and his eyes opened wide. He smiled a lot as this could change his life. He got excited and his full cowling aura flared for a bit. As he started to silently party, even though he hadn't opened his letter yet, this got Bardock, 21, and 16's attention. His aura is flaring, 16 analyzed with his internal scouter. Better check out and see what's there, could be an android, Bardock said. He placed 2 fingers to his temple and 16 and 21 held onto Bardock as he teleported next to Izuku, and saw he was simply excited about a letter he was holding, and then Izuku's aura disappeared. The 3 were confused as to what the letter might contain, but then Izuku's mother, Aiko Midoriya, appeared from the living room. Izuku, what's? Then Aiko saw the letter, the 3 senses of Izuku, and Izuku's excited face. Mom, my acceptance letter to UA is here, Izuku said excitedly. Well, that's great, she said with a smile. Trying not to tear up. But who are the 3 behind you? Behind me, Izuku questioned before he turned around and saw Bardock, 16, and 21. Boo, Bardock said after a moment of silence. Izuku jumped and raised his foot in an attempt to kick Bardock, who blocked it. Stand down kid, it's just us, Bardock said. Oh, sorry Bardock-sensei, Izuku said. Oh. Why you must be the people who trained my baby boy so he could enter UA, Aiko said as she remembered 10 months earlier when Izuku gave her the aim to pass. American Dream Plan. Bardock was silent for a moment before coughing into his fist. Yes, we were, Bardock said, playing along with what she said. Thank you for helping my boy have a chance at getting into UA, Aiko said and bowed in respect while Izuku gave a panicked look to Bardock. Bardock looked at Izuku and mubbed, "I'm playing along." He looked back at Aiko. "I'm just training the kid. Nothing much. I'll admit, he was weak at first, but he did grow pretty strong from the training." Izuku blushed at the praise. Aiko stood tall again, though even with her standing tall she was still shorter than everyone in the room. "Still, thank you," 21 coughed into her hand. "Ahem. I'm sorry for being rude, but Izuku does have an important letter in his hand." "Oh. You're right," Aiko remembered. "Why, you can go open it, Izuku." Izuku took a few steps towards his room before stopping, and he looked at the handle, then back at everyone else who was getting inside and walking towards the living room. Bardock took off his battle shoes, and it was revealed he wore socks. And 21 took off her heels but was barefoot. 16 explained that his suit was a part of him and that he was a robot. Izuku looked at his letter and then smiled and walked toward the living room. Everyone was confused as he walked into the living room. "I want us all to see if I've made it in. You all are important to me, and I think we should see it together," Izuku admitted. That put a smile on 21 and Aiko's faces. Bardock scoffed, and 16 nodded. Then he tore the envelope in half and opened the letter, and a small disc came out and fell onto the table. Everyone stared at the disc for a moment. Then a hologram appeared from it and showed a face. "I am here." As a projection, a familiar voice to Izuku said, making Izuku's eyes widen. "Hey, All Might," Izuku exclaimed. "I thought this was from UA. I bet you're wondering what I'm doing in a UA sent letter," All Might guessed through the pre-recorded message. "Well, I am here to teach at UA. Now listen up, young Midoriya." Everyone went silent as All Might spoke. "You passed the written portion of the test with flying colors. You were amazing. Good job." Izuku blushed at the praise, unused to it and also because it was from All Might. "However, you didn't score a single point in the practical exam, so we would have to turn you out." Izuku looked down, and everyone looked at him, and Aiko looked like she might have cried. "Well, I don't always have to go to UA, there always is. However, there is something we would like to show you," All Might said before a scene played and Izuku looked at the projection. Hey, it showed the girl he had saved during the entrance exam in her school's uniform talking with President Mick. "I'm here about the boy who saved me during the entrance exam, you know, the plain-looking boy with the curly green hair and freckles under his eyes. I heard that he didn't score a single point, at least from what he was mumbling at the end, when he broke his arm and legs with his quirk." Izuku looked surprised. He didn't think anyone heard him. Aiko was surprised at what the girl said about Izuku having a quirk. "I'd like to donate some of my points to him. He was so kind and he just jumped and saved me at the end." She closed her eyes and bowed slightly. "Could you please give him some of my points?" President Mick smiled and patted and rubbed her head. "That won't be necessary, little girl. He made it in just fine. You wouldn't get in. That is if we didn't count hero points," All Might exclaimed before it showed a clip of Izuku jumping from the street and towards the zero-pointer and yelling "smash" before he destroyed the robot. Izuku, who then fell onto his knees as he stared at the projection as it showed his practical score. Villain points 0. Hero points 60. "This is your Hero Academia, young Midoriya," All Might said. "We welcome you to UA with open arms." The projection ended. Izuku looked at the ground with a smile before he looked at everyone else. His eyes were tearing up but they didn't go down his face. Plus, Ultra, Aiko then started crying and hugged Izuku. "My baby made it into UA and has a quirk." She was so happy and surprised, but what trumped that was the amount of tears she was shedding, as she was crying so much that her quirk could have been river tears or something involving tears, but simply she cried enough to fill